this is Bob Neve, and I'm doing this both for Perry, my clinical director, and for anybody in the future who wants some instruction as to how I do my end of the year analysis and plan for the next year. And this is step two. This is number two, determining my values, establishing my values. There is a Word document that has this if you want to print it out for clients. I'll make sure that that Word document is in the same folder on the NAS that I put this recording. And actually, there'll be a Word document with a link to the YouTube thing that you're watching right now. So anyways, since way before, way before 2009, it was in the late 90s, mid 90s, that was the first time I saw this. It was probably in a Charles Givens seminar where he presented this idea to us that there's these some 36 things that people can value, things people can value that may or may not value. Having lots of friends, church activities, power to influence others, peace of mind, wealth, living to an old age, retirement. So here's 36 things that can be valued. And every year for way over 20 years, at the last week of the year, I've taken a look at how I did the previous year. For example, actual in 2010. And then I made a plan for the next year. So I looked at what my plan was for the previous year. Okay, good physical health was supposed to be number one in 2009. Relationship with God was supposed to be number two. And as the last week of December of 2010, when I looked at myself being fat and huge, I decided, good physical health was actually number 20, value number 31. Not at all value number one. If it was value number one, I would have lost a lot of weight and been in good shape. Clearly, at the end of 2010, I had not lost a weight and was not in good shape. I had done a little better maybe on spending time with God in prayer and Bible and prayer and meditation. But it looks like that year I spent most of the time having recreation time and spending it with my mate is apparently what I spent all of 2010 actually doing, and being in business for myself and creating meaningful work is what I really emphasized. And obviously I did not emphasize time with God, my own physical health, figuring out how to carry out my life's purpose. But anyway, so that was way back then. So that's the idea. I make a plan the first week of January, the last week of December. I look at how well did I actually accomplish that plan, and then I make a plan for the next year. So I've done that every year for on this Excel spreadsheet, on this particular Excel spreadsheet since 2009. So this would have been the first week of January 2009 that I created this particular Excel spreadsheet. And so here's my actual for 2019. And then, of course, since it's an Excel spreadsheet, you can sort it. So let me just do a sort by Q here with no headers. Sort no headers by Q. Okay, so my plan. Oh, no, let's see. That's actual for 2019. Okay, so in December 2019, I looked at my values here and I said, okay, how well did I actually focus on and value good spiritual health in my relationship with God? 2019, I did really well. So pretend this is the last week of December 2019. I'm looking at my life. The last week of December 2019, I'm looking at all of 2019 from January through December 2019. I did really good at getting in the Word, praying and meditating. I did really well at spending time with my mate. I did really well at knowing my purpose, asking God for direction so I would know God's will for my life. So these are the actual values when I looked at my life. How well did I actually do? So let me I'll just take it at that. So looking at my life and how I actually did, those are those are looking at my life and what I actually accomplished. That's what my behavior says that I valued. So the first week of January 2020, I said, okay, this is how I want it to be. I want relationship with God to be number one. I want good physical health to be number two, because it actually had not been that important in 2019 until close to the end of the year, till October. So I want good physical health to be number two. I want spending time with mate to be number three. I want knowing my purpose to be number four. I actually plan to do less church activities because I did a lot of church activities in 2019. I plan to do less church activities. Any other big differences here? Yeah, I actually wasn't really focused on emotional health very well in 2019, and I realized I needed to do better. So the first week of January 2020, I decided I need to make emotional health a priority. So now I'm going to sort these by how I planned for. Let me take a quick look and see what this other stuff is here. I don't know why those yellow lines are out there like that. Oh, I know why. I know why. All right, so let me get rid of this. Oh, I don't know how I'm gonna do that. Oh well, I don't care. Never mind. Never mind. All right, so I'm gonna resort these by um, the January 2020 plan data sort. Hope you're following me here. Hope I'm making sense. So we're gonna sort by column R. And did that sort properly? Yeah. Okay. So in January 2020, I said spiritual health has got to be number one, physical health has got to be number two, spending time with mates got to be number three, knowing my purpose, knowing God's will has got to be number four. So this is my plan for what I was going to do in 2020. Good emotional health was going to be number five. Power to determine my own life's course. That's me determining my life course, not someone else determining my life course, not the government determining my life course, not mom or dad or memories of mom and dad or someone telling me what I should do. This is how important it is to determine my own life's course according to God's will, and not letting anybody else's will interfere with my will, and then having the power to carry out what I really believe is God's will. Then having being a business for myself, having a sense of accomplishment and growing investments, um, having a sense of self-sufficiency, being able to do things myself with a healthy interdependence on other people. So this has to do with me taking care of what I need to take care of, as well as delegating to other people things that I think other people should be doing. Meaningful work, travel, peace of mind. So here's the plan. This is the order of how things were planned in January 2020 for my life to run. Wealth was not going to be that important. Quitting work was not that important. Church activities were way down there. Looking good's not that important. Personal passions of interest and study. I was kind of done studying things in January of 2020. It became more important in 2020 when I started studying options and stocks with Kyle Dennis. So volunteer work, helping or surprising friends, being spontaneous with friends was lower. And then all these are really low. I don't have any kids, so spending time with kids is last. Having no enemies doesn't matter to me at all. I want to have some enemies. I want to piss off all the Nazis on the planet. Spending time with relatives. I have some relatives, and I like Jill Mortensen, and there's some relatives I like and I want to hang out with, but it's just not that high of a value for me. And maybe it should be more, maybe it shouldn't. I don't know. Having lots of friends has always been lower since high school and college. I don't need a lot of friends. I need one or two very close friends, and that's Sherry. But so these are just, and the deal with this exercise is you can't have any ties. There are no ties. You can't decide that having a lot of friends is just as important as advancing your education. One of them has to beat out the other. because every second of your day, you're making a decision according to your values. And you may go by the value that you've planned, or you may go by what your body tells you or your flesh tells you, or maybe it's your spirit changing your plan. Um, but the actual is your behavior and what you actually did. Your plan is what your mind wants it to be. All right. So with all that in mind, there's my here was my plan for January 2020. So December 2020, today is Friday, January 1st, 2021, and Sherry and I sat down, and actually I worked on this all week. How did I actually do on all these things? Did I actually accomplish my plan? I did really good in my relationship with God. In all of 2020, I spent a lot of time praying, meditating, and in the Word. I did really, really well all year long. The last couple weeks of December, I got a little lazy, but all year long, I really did really well. And I spent more time with my mate than I intended to. There were lots of times we just spent time together and neglected our physical health. A little bit, not much. So she came in number two in my values and my actual, how I actually did in 2020. And physical health was a little bit less than that. We really, when Sherry and I sat down on the 30th and 31st of December 2020, and I got her input and her feedback after I had assessed myself for how I actually did in 2020. She came and gave me some further input and said, "Yeah, you neglected your emotional health way more than you think you did." We talked about that a bit, and I had to admit that, yeah, I really did neglect my emotional health. I wanted it to be number 5, but in reality, I didn't make it number 5. These were right about where they were supposed to be. Being in business, now this is interesting here. Being in business for myself is no longer as important as I intended it to be. I thought I have to be in business and I have to run the business and I have to do what God tells me to do. Throughout the year, I realized I can let go of the Clearview Center and let Perry run it. I can, because Perry and Sheila and Kristen and Lisa and Daniel and Kate, they're going to do fine. So more and more being in business for myself is simply not as important as letting other people run the business. So now, sense of accomplishment, I did spend more time growing my investments and studying my investments. This is actually studying investments down here also. Those studies of the investments and growing my investments was a little bit more important than I had planned, and that's okay. This is about, towards the end of the year, I did better at delegating to other people and taking care of what I needed to take care of, as well as delegating. I think I did better than planned. Meaningful work, it turned out to be even more meaningful than I thought it would be. We didn't travel as much as we had planned because of COVID. I definitely neglected my peace of mind. I had planned for peace of mind to be 13. It was actually 22. Same with my happiness and recreation time. I had really planned to make those higher priorities, but they weren't. Now, I did pretty well on living to an old age because I lost a bunch of weight this year, 50 pounds, 60 pounds. I was down 65 pounds at one point. So I did pretty good on accomplishing what I had planned towards the value of living to an old age. Retiring, preparing financially for retirement, which, by the way, is separate from quitting work retirement. There's really two different things. I don't value quitting work as much as I do being prepared financially and continuing to work. But anyway, so, and those are my thoughts on these. You can define these how you want. So anyways, we really think this is how I actually did. So I'm going to sort these again. Data, sort by column S, I believe. So here's how I actually did in 2020. Now I look at what I actually did in 2020 and I think about, what do I want to change? What do I want to do different? And one of the obvious things is good emotional health, peace of mind, my happiness, and recreation time. They need to be higher than 21 through 24. Um, so, so now I'm looking. So now it's January 1st of 2021. As you can see, I'm making this plan for what 2021 is going to be. Relationship with God's number one, and I'm being really honest about spending time with Mate is more important than physical health. There are going to be some times when she and I spend time together eating food we shouldn't be eating, or maybe should's not the word, but eating food that isn't the best for our physical health because we're just spending time together having fun. So I'm being really honest about that. So I'm making that 2, making that 3, leaving it the way it actually was last year. Knowing God's will is clearly the next highest value. And I've determined this too. Carrying out my purpose is more important than me determining my life's course. I still need to determine it according to God's will, but carrying out my purpose, whether it's me determining it or not, is not as important. It's more important for me to carry out my purpose than it is for me to determine my purpose. And that's still more important than good emotional health, which now has to be way higher. And the last couple weeks of December, I've done really well at that. I got off Wellbutrin, which was making me cranky, irritable, and sometimes hypomanic. So I'm going to make good emotional health, peace of mind, and my happiness way more important. 7, 8, and 9. Recreation time honestly didn't follow all those other ones that are kind of lumped together, and I'll tell you why. Because good emotional health and peace of mind and my happiness, I'm going to value more this year. But it's also important for me to grow my investments so I can do what I believe God wants me to do in carrying out my purpose. So I'm going to spend some time growing my investments, and it's more important than my recreation time. And growing my investments and creating more wealth is more important than having recreation time. And living to an old age is more important than recreation time, because part of living to an old age is planning for eating right, cooking good food, doing some more exercise, and that's more important than sitting around on my butt recreation time. They're closely related, but that's my thoughts. So I'm making a sense of accomplishment 10, I'm making wealth 11, I'm making living to an old age 12, I'm making preparing financially for retirement 13. Then after I've accomplished those, my next value is having recreation time. Followed by meaningful work. Meaningful work really has changed. The definition of meaningful work is changing from doing face-to-face therapy to purchasing and running properties for therapy, which was last year. And now it's really growing to grow investments to give me opportunities for moving south, for moving to Florida, Costa Rica, Jamaica, whatever God plans for us. So that meaningful work is a little bit less important now than recreation time. I know it's all meaningful. I still value it, but I value it a little bit less than I value recreation time. Just because I've focused on it and I know it's meaningful what I'm doing, and I'm just not focusing on it as much. So I don't need to think of it as something I value. Self-sufficiency and interdependence, I don't need to focus on that as much. I don't need to focus on what I'm studying as much because I've learned a lot of great stuff. Travel's coming in a little bit higher than it was because we want to do a little more traveling, even though it was kind of out of our control. These over here is assessments of my performance. That's the assessment of my performance column. So I'll write notes in here about my assessment for the year. So, for example, you can read these. You can just read these on your own if you want to pause and read those or whatever. Spending time with Mate. We're doing Weight Watchers. Good physical health. We did really well. Anyways, okay. So where was I? So now I'm looking at what I actually did. I'm making my plan for January. I'll run this by Sherry in a little bit. But now I'm going to sort these by the plan, by 2021 plan, so I can get a better idea. And I'm talking to myself here about what I value more, what I value less. And I'm doing this video so you can see my thought process as I'm going through this. So I know I've kind of explained how this works, but I'm just at this point explaining how my thought process is kind of in detail. So now it's January of 2021. What's my plan for this year? Does this make sense? Relationship with God, 1. Mate, 2. Physical health, 3. Absolutely. Knowing His will, yep. Carrying out my purpose, yep. Me determining my life's course, yeah. I'm using my will to accomplish God's will. Great. Good emotional health, peace of mind, and happiness are now more important than growing my investments in wealth. But those come closely after those 3. So there's going to be times next year when I want to work more and I tell myself, no, for good emotional health, peace of mind, and my happiness, I'm going to stop working today and be satisfied with what I have. And those two kind of go along with each other. So then at some point I'm going to say, all right, living to an old age, I need to think about my health, my long-term health, preparing financially. These are all really close together. And I guess I think about these each individually a little bit, since these are all of these are in that middle part where I'm like, okay, do I need to value this more or less? They're all very much batched together, and they're all very much more important than having a lot of friends, personal possession, passions, notoriety, and fame. And actually, knowing important or famous people, I'm going to make a little bit higher. That's going to be up here somewhere, because I think I'm supposed to have an influence on 1 or 2 or maybe more wealthy people and leading them to Christ. I really have felt that for a number of years. So that's going to be a little higher at some point. Okay, so where am I at? Happiness, peace of mind, sense of accomplishment after happiness, wealth after sense of accomplishment, living to an old age after wealth. Yeah, because I'm going to live to be 90, 100, or whatever. And right now, this year, these 2 things are a little more important than living to be 105. That's just my thought. Preparing financially for retirement. Yeah, still living to an old age. I don't want to neglect my health and try to retire sooner with more money. Should recreation time be a little higher on here? Sherry's going to want it higher. But honestly, no. I'm going to be thinking about, at some point in time in 2021, I'm going to be thinking, no, I'm going to work a little longer, study a little harder, learn some other things, look at another stock, look at where my options are, and neglect some recreation time. That's going to happen, and that's going to be okay. Yeah, so I think that's where it's supposed to be. Sherry's going to probably tell me different. Meaningful work. I know it's meaningful, so I don't have to focus on it as much. This is just getting less and less here because I'm just not as focused on it. I'm not as focused on studying more. I've got some pretty successful methods that I'm doing things. Travel might have to be a little bit higher, but with COVID, we don't know what. I just read an article today about stupid people on airplanes that have COVID. Ugh. Guy died on an airplane. He had COVID and he died of COVID on the airplane. Forced everybody to divert to Louisiana from, I don't know, they were going from California to Florida. So there's still idiots out there that are still getting onto planes and lying about not having COVID. How do we protect ourselves from stupid, zombie, ignorant people? I don't know. So, that may even be less. Travel might even be less because I want to exercise, have good physical health, live to an old age, and as a result, I'm going to feel like I'm looking good. God, that's actually more important than. No, that's about the same. That's about right. Having fewer problems, I don't care. Being in business for myself, don't care as much. Quitting work, don't care as much. Advancing my education, a little, maybe. You know, this might be 20 because advancing my education might be more education in stocks and whatnot. 21. Church, church and friends. Friends might be just a little more important than church. And it's not that I'm souring on church, maybe a little, but we let go of Mariners last year, but I'm doing a little more deacon stuff this year. It's not as important as last year, and it doesn't matter if it goes up or down a little bit to me, because now I'm really looking at, okay, what's the plan for 2021? Do I want that to be a higher value? So I just regularly go and sort these. So let's sort according to T. Does this look right? Yep. And I go back again. Number 1, relationship with God's number 1. Mate, number 2. Physical health, 3. Knowing God's will, 4. Carrying out God's will, 5. Me determining my life's course, 6. Emotional health, peace of mind, happiness. Does this feel right to me as far as my values? Growing my investments, wealth, living to an old age, retiring financially, preparing financially for retirement. Now there's recreation time. Is that the right place? Sherry's going to want it higher, but honestly, that's where I think it's going to be. And then we kind of go off a cliff here. There's a big step between 14 and 15 in my mind. Meaningful work, I know it's meaningful. It's just not something I focus on. Me doing it and delegating, it's being handled. It's being taken care of. I'm not that focused on it. Not that focused on study. Not that focused on travel. Not that focused on looking good. But it's a value that's down there a ways. Knowing important or famous people. I just have this feeling that I'm going to be leading some wealthy, important, or famous people to Christ. Maybe 1, maybe 2, I don't know. But it's hanging around in there. Advancing my education, learning more about stocks, spending time with friends, church activities. Fewer problems, I don't even care. Being in business for myself, at this point, that's where that value is. Retiring, quitting work. Sorry, Sherry, I'm not going to do it for a while. Influencing others and respect from others, who cares? Volunteer work, helping or surprising friends. Oh, yeah, this is about where that goes. Recognition, notoriety, and fame. No, I don't want any of that. Having a few very close friends. I don't know. What is the deal with friends? Why are they so low down here? I don't know. Am I burnt out? No, not really. Love hanging out with Perry, I love having coffee with Kristen. I got to do that more often. So just a second here. I've got to drop into Clearview and surprise Kristen with a latte more often. But with COVID, we're not always in there. I don't know. And again, now that we're down to 25, these things from 22 to 36, they don't really matter much. And occasionally I think about, who I'm leaving my money to as my children, but right now I don't have any children. Having no enemies, I don't care about not having enemies. Spending time with relatives, that's where it is. Having a lot of friends, doesn't really matter. Possessions, I really don't care about possessions. God, that's really 34. This is really 33. That's really 32. Having close recognition, notoriety, fame. Ugh. That's 33. This is 32. That's 31. This is 30. And I still kind of demand respect. I still kind of need a certain amount of respect. You know, I need more respect than I need influence, though. So where am I? 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Here's 25. Sherry's going to be bummed. 26, 27. Let's see how this worked out. Let's see if this is where I'm actually at right now, the first week of January 2021. Let me look at these, sort them again, look at them again, see if this is my values. God, mate, physical health, knowing God's will, carrying out my purpose, me determining my life's course, health, peace of mind, emotional health, peace of mind, happiness, growing my investments, wealth, living to an old age, retiring, preparing financially, having rec time. Yeah. I feel like I can have recreation time if I've done my work to value all those things. Kind of on a weekly basis, not necessarily on a daily basis. Meaningful work, self-sufficiency. This is how much I'm valuing these things. Study, travel, looking good, knowing important famous people, advancing my education. Yeah, that's a little bit more important. That's a little bit more important. That's a little bit more important. So I'm moving that around. I just moved that around. I moved advancing my education, spending time with friends, church activities, ahead of knowing important or famous people. Now that's where I feel like I'm at. Being in business for myself, surprising friends, volunteer work, actually quitting work, having fewer problems, respect from others. Well, Sherry's going to be bummed about this because that's not 26. This is 26. That's 27. This is 28. That's 29. Sherry's going to give me some thoughts about these, I know, but I'm going to put it the way it actually feels like it is for me, and I think I'm there. Looking good. Yep, I value that more than education, more than advancing my current education, more than spending time with friends, church activities, knowing important famous people, being in business for myself, surprising friends, respect from others, power to influence others, quitting work, fewer problems, one or very close friends, and that really is a higher value, but it's not something I have to focus on. Having a lot of friends, relatives, notoriety, fame, personal passions. I think that's it. Wow. So now I'm going to save this. And that's how I do this. That's how I do this. Now, usually I would write down kind of more assessments of performance, how I performed last year, and thoughts about priorities. Oh, I didn't really write in here my thoughts because I just spoke them to you. This in here was the same as 2019. I have a unified biennial. There's 2 years that were really unified in my thoughts. So I would actually, my thoughts about priorities, what I wanted to be, I type them in here. Yes, always number one. And then, let's be honest, mate, more important than health at times. Okay. And here, more important to carry out purpose than to determine it myself, quote unquote. To determine it myself. So those are the notes that I write in that column. Yep. Gotta be more important. Oops. Oop. Yup. Gotta be more important. Gotta be more important. Gotta be more important. And then a bunch of these are very close. Now I can rest. Dropping much lower in value. Travel, COVID, dang it. And that also applies to spending time with friends, church activities, surprising friends, spending time with relatives. Anyway. All right. Advancing my education, stocks, investments. That's stocks and investments too. Yeah, advancing my education is usually getting another degree. I'm just not getting more degrees. Looking good. Result of focusing on physical health. Physical health. Yeah. So there's my thoughts. I think we're good. I think that's where it's at. That's about it. So there's the exercise on number 2 values. And I save that, and I'll now stop my recording. So there you go.